What would they Google at 11 p.m. when they can't sleep? That question alone tells you more about your listener than any demographic survey ever could, because that's when people are honest. You can't plan an episode around professionals aged 25 to 45. You can't write a title that makes professionals aged 25 to 45 click play because you haven't described a situation. You've described a demographic. Here's something I hear from almost every new client, and I mean almost every single one I talk to. They sit down, I ask them who their podcast is for, and they say something like, "My audience is professionals aged 25 to 45 who want to grow their business." And every time I hear it, I have to tell them as nicely as I can, that's not an audience. That's a census category. It tells you almost nothing useful. You can't plan an episode around professionals aged 25 to 45. You can't write a title that makes professionals aged 25 to 45 click play. You can't create a CTA that speaks to their specific situation because you haven't described a situation. You've described a demographic. And demographics are not the same thing as understanding your listener. So today, I'm going to show you the actual process we use at 7 Million Bikes Podcast to build a listener persona for every show we produce. This is the real thing, not a theory exercise, not something I read in a marketing textbook. This is what we actually do in the room with real clients when they're building their show from the ground up. And the good news, you can do all of this yourself. You don't need to hire us or anyone else. You just need about 20 minutes and the willingness to think really specifically about one person. Once you have it, planning episodes becomes dramatically easier, like night and day easier. So let's get into it. I'm Neil Mackay, the podcast guy. This is Smarter Podcasting. So before I teach you the better way, let me explain why the usual way doesn't work. Because I think once you understand this, the rest of the episode is going to make a lot more sense. When most people try to define their podcast audience, they reach for demographics. Age, gender, location, job title, industry, maybe income bracket if they're feeling fancy. And those things are not useless. They tell you something, but here's what they don't tell you. Demographics don't tell you what your listener is thinking about at 11 p.m. when they can't sleep. They don't tell you what they've already tried that didn't work. They don't tell you what language they use when they describe their own problems to a friend. And they don't tell you what they're afraid of. They don't tell you what kind of voice they'd actually trust. And those are the things that matter when you're making a podcast. Because when you're planning an episode, the question isn't, what do professionals aged 25 to 45 want to hear? That's unanswerable. It's so broad that it's useless. The question is, what is the specific problem my listener is wrestling with right now? What have they already tried? And what do I know that could help them? When you can answer that question, episode topics become obvious. Titles write themselves. Your opening hook, the first 30 seconds of the episode lands immediately because you're speaking directly to a real concern. And your call to actions actually work because you're not making a generic offer. You're offering specific help for a specific problem that you just spent 20 minutes demonstrating that you understand. So the goal today is to get you from professionals aged 25 to 45 to something that actually helps you make better content. And the way we do that is something that I call the one-person method. The one-person method. This is the single most useful thing I've ever learned about content planning, and I use it for every show that we produce. Now, the idea is simple. Instead of trying to describe a demographic, a group, a category, you describe one single person. A specific individual. You give them a name, you describe their life, and then every episode you make it for that one person. Now, obviously, you're not actually making the show for one person, but when you write for one specific person, the content becomes so much more focused and relatable that it ends up resonating with everyone who shares that person's situation, which is exactly who you want listening. So here's the exercise, and I genuinely encourage you to pause after this section and actually do it. Grab a piece of paper or open a doc or a messaging app on your phone, and this takes about 20 minutes, and it will change how you plan your content. Step 1, give your ideal listener a name. A real name, not target audience or avatar, an actual human name. Now, this sounds silly, but it matters. It forces your brain to think of them as a real person, not a data point. Step 2, give them a specific job, not just a business owner. What kind of business? How long have they been doing it? What does their day actually look like? Are they a solo consultant? Do they have a team of 5? Are they billing hourly? Are they on a retainer? The more specific, the better. Step 3, describe their professional situation in concrete terms. How many years of experience do they have? What's their current business model? How are they currently getting clients? What's working? What's not? Step 4, and this is the really important one, answer these questions about them. What are they worried about on a Sunday night? Not in a general sense, specifically. Is it that their pipeline is drying up? Is it that they're spending too much time on marketing and not enough on the work they actually love? Is it that their competitors seem to be everywhere and they feel invisible? What have they already tried that hasn't worked? Have they invested in Google Ads and gotten nothing? Have they posted on LinkedIn for 6 months and gotten 12 likes? Have they tried making YouTube videos and given up because it felt awkward? And here's the one I love the most. What would they Google at 11 p.m. when they can't sleep? That question alone tells you more about your listener than any demographic survey ever could. Because that's when people are honest. That's when they search for what they're actually afraid of. Step 5, what kind of content do they trust? Who do they already follow? Do they like the data and frameworks or stories and case studies? Do they want someone polished and professional? Or someone who's a bit rough around the edges, but clearly genuine? What's their tolerance for jargon? Let me walk you through what this looks like for Smarter Podcasting, because I actually did this exercise when we relaunched the show, and it genuinely changed how I plan every episode. Our ideal listener is someone like, let's call him Marcus. Marcus runs a consulting business. He's been in his field for about 12 years. He's genuinely excellent at what he does. His clients love him, and when he does the work, the results are great. He's been getting clients through referrals, mostly word of mouth. Someone recommends him, they have a call, and it works out. That's been his model for years, and it's worked fine. But recently, the referrals are slowing down. Not disappearing, but slowing. And he's starting to feel that uncomfortable pressure of, I need to find a way to get in front of people. I need to build some kind of presence. I can't just rely on other people recommending me forever. He knows he should be doing something online. LinkedIn, maybe a podcast, maybe YouTube, but he finds marketing advice either too technical, too vague, or too cringy. He doesn't want that person shouting on social media about their 6-figure framework. That's not him. He wants someone who speaks from real experience, not theory. Someone who respects his time and doesn't waste it with fluff. Someone who's actually done the thing and not just read about it. That's Marcus. And when I plan an episode of Smarter Podcasting, I ask myself one question. Would Marcus find this useful? If the answer is yes, I make it. If the answer is no, I don't. Simple as that. And the result is that every episode feels focused. Every title is written for him. Every opening hook speaks to something he's actually thinking about. And the people who listen and eventually reach out to 7 Million Bytes podcasts, they're all some version of Marcus. That's the power of one person. You write for one and you reach many. Because Marcus isn't unique. There are thousands of Marcuses. They just needed a show that felt like it was made for them. So the one person method is the foundation. But there are 2 more layers I want to give you that make it even sharper. The first is analytics. The second is AI. And both of them are easier than you think. Let's start with analytics. If you already have a podcast, even if it's just a few episodes, your hosting platform is collecting data about your listeners. And most podcasters never even look at it. Spotify for Podcasters and Apple Podcast Connect both give you demographic data. Age ranges, gender split, locations, listening devices, how long people listen for, how long people listen for before they drop off, what episodes get the most plays. All of this is free. It's just sitting there. Now, is this data perfect? No, it's rough. It only captures listeners on that platform, but it gives you patterns, and patterns are what you're looking for. For example, if you discover that 70% of your listeners are on Spotify and 80% of them listen on mobile, that tells you something about how they're consuming your content. They're probably listening during a commute or a walk, which means your episodes need to work as pure audio. No visual references, no look at this chart I'm showing. It's a small insight, but it changes how you make the show. Or if you look at your retention graphs and you see that most listeners drop off at the 15-minute mark, that's telling you something about your ideal episode length. Don't fight the data, listen to it. Now, the second layer, AI, and specifically ChatGPT, because this is one of my favorite uses of AI, and I think it's widely underused by podcasters. Here's what I do. I describe my podcast topic and purpose to ChatGPT. I describe the kind of person I think my listener is, and then I ask it to generate a detailed listener persona. Professional background, pain points, goals, content preferences, the kind of language they use, what they search for, what keeps them up at night. And it generates this incredibly detailed persona. Way more detailed than what most people would come up with on their own. Because AI is really good at pattern recognition and extrapolation. It can take the seed of an idea and build a full picture. Now, is it always right? No, of course not. It's a starting point. Not the answer, but it's a brilliant thinking partner. What I do is I generate the persona, I read through it, and then I filter. I ask myself, does this ring true? Does this match the real people I've actually spoken to? And I keep the parts that resonate and throw out the parts that don't. I use ChatGPT all the time for this kind of research. I'm not embarrassed about it at all. I'll describe a client's business and target audience and ask it to generate listener personas, interview question ideas, episode topic lists. It's like having a really smart research assistant who works 24 hours a day and never gets tired. We even do this during client onboarding at 7 Million Bytes Podcasts. We'll sit with a new client, describe their audience together, plug it into ChatGPT and iterate on the persona in real time. It speeds up a process that used to take weeks into something that we can do in an afternoon. So if you haven't tried this yet, seriously go do it. Describe your podcast, describe who you think your listener is, ask ChatGPT to build the persona, then refine it based on what you know to be true from actual experience. The combination of your real-world knowledge and AI's ability to extrapolate it is incredibly powerful. All right, let's land this. Here's your assignment. And I'm genuinely asking you to do this, not just nod along and move on to the next episode. Genuinely do this. Take 20 minutes. Could be today, could be this afternoon, could be tomorrow, but do it this week. Write out the one-person description of your ideal listener. Give them a name, describe their job, describe their situation, answer the Sunday night worry question. Answer the what have they tried question. And most importantly, answer the 11 p.m. Google question. What are they searching for when nobody's watching? Once you have that, I promise you, everything about your podcast gets easier. Episode planning, titles, hooks, CTAs, it all flows from knowing exactly who you're talking to. If you already did this after last week's episode when I introduced the 3 elements, amazing. Add the detail from today's exercise. Make it richer, make it realer. If you haven't done it yet, today's the day. 20 minutes, one person, it changes everything. Next week, we're going to talk about your first 10 episodes. Specifically, the framework for planning a body of content that builds trust systematically, not accidentally. I'm going to give you the 3 types of episodes every business podcast needs and a specific template for how to plan your first 10. It's the episode I wish someone had given me when I started. Remember, follow Smarter Podcasting so you don't miss it, turn on your notifications, and best of all, share this episode with somebody who's thinking about starting a podcast or wants to take an existing one to the next level. Trust me, they will thank you. And if you want help building your listener persona or you're thinking through your show strategy, then go to 7millionbikes.com and book a discovery call with me. Completely free, no pressure, just good conversation, and we'll talk through how we can help support you. I'm Neil Mackay, the podcast guy. This is Smarter Podcasting. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Cheers.